And it was a religious family. They weren't extremely religious, but as he was approaching high school, or even earlier than that, he began having questions, and that led to situations where he asked those questions, and the answers that he got convinced him that the people didn't really have answers to those questions, and so he ended up leaving the church. And then he moved on to become a socialist and was all thrilled with socialism until he realized that the socialists he knew were all little people that were jealous of the people that had it, were wealthy and had success and so on. And then he realized he didn't actually believe what they believed. And so he ended up totally stranded and lost. And went into psychology. So I don't know. This is really cool. And by the way, his rebellion didn't really matter to anyone. No one really cared, etc. That sounds so. Well, he's Canadian, but you get the idea, right? I don't know how many of you have had this kind of experience. When we talk about boys becoming men today. I don't know if you're familiar with the interesting quandary. For many years, the issue was how do we get girls to be more happy with themselves? They would go to high school, and before they finished high school, the attitude they had towards themselves became depressed. And they couldn't figure out why are our girls getting depressed and not feeling confidence in themselves. We have to spend more money to try to make sure that the girls get more confidence. My favorite analysis of it, though, was from Christina Hoff Sommers, who argued that the reason girls were more depressed as they finished high school was because they were actually smarter and more mature. And they understood that the world wasn't all for them. But the boys weren't that mature, and they continued on thinking, I'm the center of the world. So they were still really happy as they got to the end of high school. So a lot of money was spent, in sports programs and things in order to make sure girls had more opportunities and so on. Now we're looking at a situation where 60% of the students going to college are girls and 40% are boys. And it's not a matter of the boys not being eligible to get into college. They just aren't interested. And by the way, that's a significant gap, 60-40, right? So if you think of, I remember when that started to happen, a lot of professors, female professors, were all like, yes! As the girls were taking over, and I was thinking, this is scary. What's that going to mean? And in fact, we ended up now with a situation where fewer men are married. There's different statistics on how you figure out how this works. Their marriages don't work. By the way, in October, Don and I are celebrating our 51st wedding anniversary. Yay for us. But marriage is on the rocks. The relationships between men and women seem to be on the rocks. Dating is more difficult. You guys tell me. Does that sound right? Mm-hmm. There was a
Goldfish. Can I get the handful? Sure.
Sorry about the ad. It's a long one too. Shoot.
Happy? Go for the handful.
According to studies, many men say they have no close friendships, and 3 in 4 report receiving all their emotional support from their wife or girlfriend, often the moment they come home from work.
Hi, how are you? I miss you. Am I balding? Dude?
Cool. Hi, honey.
Vin Diesel has a twin brother.
Oh, honey.
When I walk in the door, my husband sort of rockets information at me for 25 minutes straight.
On a football team, there's 11 players, but with rugby, there's 15.
And all the words come out fast and in the wrong order because he hasn't spoken to anyone else that day.
I need you to go out of the house and make a friend so you can talk to other people about this stuff and not just me.
That's insane. Where would I even go?
Finally, there's a place with Man Park. It's like a dog park, but for guys in relationships, so they can make friends and have an outlet besides their girlfriends and wives.
Rise and grind.
Rise and grind.
Rise and grind, brother.
They're not working.
Oh, they're doing so good. Which one's yours?
He's a little shy.
It's not their fault masculinity makes intimacy so hard.
Marble? Marble.
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 We know not all men get along, so there's separate parks for large breeds and small breeds.
Rick Morty. Rick Morty.
There's room for all their favorite male bonding activities.
Cause I'm Mr. Brightside.
After they run around and yell, they can cool down with an IPA and really connect.
Real talk. Who's the GOAT? Michael Jordan? Tom Brady? How about Bo Burnham? Give me my best man.
I'm so glad he has someone else to talk to.
Hey, did you know Vin Diesel has a twin brother?
What? Yeah. Amazing! Is that what they're talking about?
Men are taught that it's weak to rely on each other. So I guess in that way, and don't quote me on this, it's harder to be a man. Wait, no, is this filming? Don't show my face saying that.
Ladies, get it through.
More brain damage. It's not that bad. But I do recommend to my male students to get married as soon as you can to the smartest girl who will have you. And statistically, you will live longer, you will be happier, you will be wealthier. And by the way, it's important, do what she says. And give her all your money, right? And it works. The odd thing is, statistically, women are happier without a husband. That's not my fault. I'm just reporting the statistics, and I don't know how to measure that. However. So how do you raise a good child in a society like today? And the scary thing is, if you're totally focused on the self, you don't have any community that you bond with. This is the area that's so scary. Right? I know we have a suicide issue. A lot of that, I think, is caused as a result of poverty and perhaps brain damage as a result of fetal alcohol and other things. So I think that's definitely part of that problem. But when we get to Kierkegaard, Soren Kierkegaard, he is so depressing. I put up like a trigger warning, warning, studying the following philosopher could be damaging to your mental health. Because he's so focused on the self that he is so depressed. He dies when he's 42. And there's no apparent reason. He just dies on the street. And why? Right? So seriously, you can become an existentialist and so depressed that you become almost European. That happens to people. Now, I suppose that the American ideal is the center, where we can put neo-pragmatism, which is, the neo-pragmatists feel like, doing the best for everybody is the main goal in life, but their problem is they don't know what that is. They don't know what the best is, right? Do we give people money so that they can be, able to survive on their own? Or by doing that, do we make their situation worse because they're less interested in doing for themselves? That's the kind of dilemma you might have there. So we're in a society where we have all of these different ethical traditions. Alistair McIntyre says, because of that confusion, your best bet is to focus on your excellence, your own excellence in some manner. So you get to pick what you want to do for your focus in your life, but focusing on that and focusing on your excellence in that is the best kind of ethical norm that we could focus on as Americans. We don't have enough of a community for us to say that I'm in a community that all agrees with the same values. Too many different conflicting values. We do have, those communities that are very stable and certain, but they're problematic, for lots of different reasons. And if you're a scientist and you're a good scientist, and you think that it's very important that all our knowledge is based on science, and you have to point out to folks that think that way, well, what do you mean by a good scientist? Oh, well, we've got all these criterion for it. Those are all values-based criterion, which is based on a moral narrative that isn't what science is all about, right? So to be a good scientist, you actually have to have values, and values come from somewhere else besides just looking at the data. Is this fun? You guys having fun with this sort of thing? Pardon? SNL, yeah, I can't compete with that stuff, but that's an interesting dilemma with regard to reading. When I was a kid, it wasn't until junior year that one of my roommates brought a TV to college. It was just a little one, and black and white, and he mostly brought it because he was a Star Trek fan. And so we would turn on Star Trek. I don't recall watching anything else on that. But everything else we did was reading. But now you have videos, and YouTube videos, and you can go right to what you want to, and the power of that media is way greater than reading a book. You think about it. So you clearly take advantage of it. But we do have the issue of so much of our information seems to only come from books still. So you need to do both. You somehow have to manage your time so that you have time to read enough that you can build the muscles that take, it's like push-ups. Read it. You can't just read a page or two. That's not going to give you that kind of ability. You need to be able to read for like a couple of hours straight, concentrate on it, and be able to focus on that. That takes build-up to do that, right? But that's how you're going to get the kind of papers that you need to read in order for you to do a significant job or something, right? One of the reasons we think Trump, didn't read, apparently. That's, the joke about what the Trump library is going to look like. Who knows? I looked at the Reagan library, and I couldn't find books anywhere. It was mostly the big airplane, and the big hangar and the restaurant area, and stuff like that.
There's a
couple
tech
of you
section
been there?
there.
There is a tech section.
Yeah.
So, where to next? Our next class, we're going to talk about the post-Aristotelian. So Aristotle gives us a wealth of information, but by the way, his main student was a young man named Alexander. Anybody familiar with Alexander? Also known as the Great. He was teaching and invited to teach Alexander by Philip. Philip was Philippa means like hippo is